You already heard about the fire on the USS Ford, a laundry room. The flagship of America's siege on Iran pulled from combat. Every headline says the same thing: fire damaged the ship. That is not what happened. The fire took more than 30 hours to bring under control. Structural damage? Minor. The Navy's own assessment? Fully mission capable. The fire did not end Ford. The fire was the last page of something that started 9 months earlier. 283 days across 3 theaters without a single maintenance reset, quietly breaking everything a damage report does not measure. A laundry room fire that any Nimitz-class carrier would have shrugged off became the crack that proved the book was already written. The question is not why Ford caught fire. The question is why a contained fire in a laundry room was enough to pull 1/3 of America's siege geometry out of the most important naval operation since 1944. And the answer changes what you think you know about every carrier the Navy is building next. 5 weeks into Operation Epic Fury, 60 Iranian warships sit on the seafloor. Missile factories? Rubble. Air defense networks that cost 40 years and $15 billion gone inside 72 hours. And yet the flagship of that siege, USS Gerald R. Ford CVN-78, is in Split, Croatia. 9 months and 18 days into a deployment designed to last 6, the longest continuous carrier deployment since Vietnam. The ship sailing to fill her position is USS George H.W. Bush CVN-77, the last Nimitz-class carrier ever built. Running steam catapults designed in 1955, full magazine, full air wing, zero combat fatigue. If you want to understand why the most advanced carrier ever built needed the last Nimitz ever built to cover its position, subscribe to Navy Decoded. We do not celebrate hardware. We examine what happens when hardware meets the limits that physics imposes on every system, no matter what it cost. To understand what Bush is sailing into, you need to understand 2 things: what Ford was supposed to be holding and why it broke. In a previous video, we showed you why the Navy designed a 3-carrier geometry instead of concentrating its fleet into a single strike force. The logic was physics, not instinct. Iran's economy and military lifeline depend on 3 maritime choke points. The Strait of Hormuz, 21 nautical miles at its narrowest, carrying 20% of the world's oil every day. Bab el-Mandeb, the entrance to the Red Sea, roughly 16 nautical miles between Yemen and Djibouti, channeling 12% of global maritime trade. And the western approaches of the Suez Canal, the last corridor linking Iran to European markets. The plan called for 1 carrier at each choke point: USS Abraham Lincoln, CVN-72 at Hormuz, USS Gerald R. Ford, CVN-78, covering the Mediterranean and Bab el-Mandeb, USS George H.W. Bush, CVN-77, scheduled to deploy to the Mediterranean to seal the 3rd door. 3 vertices, 3 walls, 1 equation with no solution for Iran. But here's the detail that the plan's geometry conceals. When Operation Epic Fury launched on February 28, 2026, only 2 carriers were deployed. Lincoln held the Arabian Sea, locking Hormuz from the east, and she has held it without interruption since. Ford was already 9 months into a deployment that had taken her from the Mediterranean to the Caribbean to the Red Sea. Bush was still at Norfolk, still completing her final combat readiness certification, still weeks away from departure. The coffin was drawn on the whiteboard with 3 walls. In reality, it was always 2 carriers stretching to cover 3 positions. Ford was doing the work of 2 ships, covering the Mediterranean, then the Caribbean, then sliding through the Suez Canal to hold Bab el-Mandeb, because the 3rd carrier was not yet available. The geometry was designed to be unbreakable. It was never complete. And in month 9, the carrier that had been covering 2 positions broke before the carrier that was supposed to relieve her could arrive. To understand what happened to the Gerald R. Ford, you cannot start with the fire. You have to start 9 months and 18 days before the fire, June 24, 2025, the day Ford left Norfolk for a 6-month deployment. 6 months, Mediterranean theater, NATO exercises, standard rotation, the predictable deploy, operate, return, maintain cycle that exists because complex warships are not designed to run indefinitely. Ford never got that reset. October 2025. The Pentagon redirected Ford to the Caribbean, counter-narcotics missions off Venezuela. Different sortie patterns, different maintenance schedules, a mission profile no supercarrier had ever sustained at scale. Ford adapted. Ford performed. And then, before maintenance teams could run depot-level inspections, February 28, 2026 arrived. Epic fury. Ford did not go home. Ford went east. Mediterranean to Caribbean to the Red Sea. 3 theaters, 3 mission profiles, no maintenance period between any of them. Here is the engineering problem. EMALS, the electromagnetic aircraft launch system, is why Ford can generate 270 sorties per day in surge operations. It replaces the steam catapult that powered every Nimitz-class carrier with a digitally calibrated linear induction motor. Smoother launches, less structural stress on airframes, higher repetition rates, precise energy control calibrated to each aircraft's weight. By every measurable metric, a generational leap forward. But that leap comes with a cost invisible on the spec sheet. EMALS depends on a network of interdependent subsystems, power conversion electronics, energy storage modules, software feedback loops, each one depending on every other to function. A steam catapult fails in predictable, mechanical ways a bosun's mate can diagnose with a wrench. EMALS fails in cascading, interdependent ways that propagate through software, power distribution, and control systems simultaneously. Under a standard 6-month deployment, the maintenance window resets the clock before those failure modes compound. Ford's clock ran for 9 months and 18 days across 3 theaters without a reset. Not EMALS, not the advanced arresting gear, not the ship's power distribution architecture, not the crew. Nothing aboard that ship was designed to run that long without scheduled downtime. On March 12, 2026, week 3 of Epic Fury, a fire broke out in Ford's aft laundry compartment while she operated in the Red Sea. The crew contained it, no catastrophic structural damage, but the smoke displaced hundreds of sailors from adjacent berthing. The Navy's assessment? Fully mission capable. What the assessment did not address, 9 months and 18 days of accumulated strain across 3 incompatible mission profiles. Ford stopped at Suda Bay, then split Croatia, where she remains today. The fire did not end Ford's deployment. The deployment ended Ford's deployment. The failure was not in any specific technology, not the EMALS, not the reactor, not the power architecture. It was in the organism surrounding the technology. The crew, the habitability systems, the accumulated fatigue of 5,000 people pushed beyond the operational envelope that every maintenance schedule exists to protect. The wall that fell was not knocked down by Iran. It was worn down from the inside. And the ship sailing to fill the gap was built to be the last of its kind. Bush was designed to be the end of a line. CVN-77. The 10th and final Nimitz-class supercarrier, commissioned in 2009, not a prototype, but the most refined version of a platform whose reliability had been demonstrated across 50 years and 9 previous hulls. The Navy's plan was straightforward. Ford represents the future. Bush represents the legacy. Legacies step aside. Except Ford is in split, and legacies do not break down at month 9. Bush spent 2024 and 2025 at Norfolk. Scheduled maintenance, system upgrades, certification cycles. She completed her final combat readiness qualification before Ford's situation became clear. She had not deployed to Venezuela, had not sustained 3 mission profiles across 9 months without rest. She is fresh. And fresh is not a luxury, it is a strategic asset. This is what Bush brings. Carrier Air Wing 7, full FA-18 Super Hornet complement, EA-18G Growler electronic attack, and 3 Arleigh Burke-class destroyer escorts. Every vertical launch cell loaded, every magazine full. Crews that have slept in their own racks and trained on a schedule that does not compress 9 months into a single unbroken stretch. What Bush does not bring? EMALS, or the 270 sorties per day it enables. Bush launches aircraft with steam. 120 sustained sorties per day. Technology from 1955. Heavy, loud, maintenance intensive. It has also produced 0 systemic failures that pulled a Nimitz-class carrier from a deployed combat position. Not 0 in a good year, 0 across the entire operational history of the class. 50 years of hulls running this exact system under exactly this kind of sustained demand. Bush traded away the ceiling. In exchange, she kept the floor. And right now, with the ceiling in a Croatian shipyard, the floor is what the geometry needs. On March 31, 2026, USS George H.W. Bush departed Norfolk for the Mediterranean. The Navy's official characterization? A regularly scheduled deployment, not an emergency response, not a rescue mission triggered by Ford's fire. Bush's deployment had been planned, certified, and loaded months before Ford's laundry compartment caught fire. Bush was always going to the Mediterranean. That was her assigned vertex in the three-carrier geometry from the beginning. Here is the problem. By the time Bush sailed, the geometry she was supposed to complete had already lost the carrier that built it. Trace the sequence. Ford repositioned from the Mediterranean through the Suez Canal into the Red Sea in early March to hold Bab el-Mandeb, the choke point between Yemen and Djibouti that controls 12% of global maritime trade. She moved because Operation Epic Fury activated the Houthi problem simultaneously with the Iran problem. Israel's southern flank, exposed to Houthi ballistic missiles and drones from Yemen, needed a carrier shield. Ford provided that shield from Bab el-Mandeb. Ford moved because Bush had not yet arrived to hold the Mediterranean. Ford covered two vertices because the geometry demanded three carriers and only two were deployed. And then, while stretching across positions that were designed for two different ships, Ford broke. When Bush arrives in the eastern Mediterranean, she will take the position she was always assigned. Lincoln holds Hormuz, Bush holds the Mediterranean. On the map, 2 of 3 vertices are covered. Bab el-Mandeb will have no carrier. Run the numbers. A carrier strike group projects effective deterrence across a radius of approximately 500 nautical miles. The distance from the eastern Mediterranean to Bab el-Mandeb is roughly 1,800 nautical miles, 3.5 times the deterrence radius. Bush cannot be in the Mediterranean and simultaneously project meaningful presence at Bab el-Mandeb. One ship, 2 positions, 1,800 nautical miles of physics between them. Now consider the timing. March 28, 2026, 3 days before Bush departed Norfolk. The Houthis launched ballistic missiles and armed drones targeting Israel, their first military operations in the current conflict. The same week, Ford withdrew from Bab el-Mandeb. When Ford held that strait, the Houthis chose restraint. When Ford disappeared from the calculus, they acted inside the silence. Presence is deterrence. Absence is invitation. The coffin that we described in the previous video, 3 walls, no exit, was never built. It required 3 carriers deployed simultaneously to 3 choke points. The Navy never had all 3 in position at the same time. Ford covered 2 positions because Bush was not ready. When Bush finally deployed, Ford was in a Croatian shipyard. The geometry has been 2 carriers since the beginning of Epic Fury. It is still 2 carriers now. Lincoln at Hormuz, Bush at the Mediterranean, and Bab el-Mandeb, the 12% corridor, the choke point the Houthis are already probing, remains open. Stack those 3 vectors, and something emerges that is larger than a deployment problem. The Nimitz question. How do you sustain carrier aviation at high tempo for as long as the deployment lasts? The Ford question. How do you redefine what high tempo means? Push the ceiling so high that the carrier becomes the dominant node in a kill chain no adversary can outpace. Both questions produced legitimate engineering answers. Neither is wrong on the drawing board. What combat does is remove the drawing board. The Nimitz absorbs 9 months of sustained demand with mechanical systems, systems that have broken in predictable, fixable ways for 50 years. The Ford absorbs it with electronic systems, whose individual components are more reliable than anything before them, but whose behavior as a whole under continuous combat operations had never been tested. Not once. Not until Epic Fury. The fire did not prove Ford is unreliable. It proved something more uncomfortable. The Navy's modernization thesis contains an assumption that was never stress-tested. The assumption? You can replace mechanical simplicity with digital complexity. Fewer moving parts, but far more interdependent subsystems, and the ship as a whole will be more reliable under sustained demand. Think of it this way. A mechanical clock has 12 gears. If one gear breaks, you hear it. You fix it. A digital clock has no gears, but it depends on a battery, a circuit board, a crystal oscillator, and firmware. Each part is more reliable than a gear, but when the battery drains after 9 months without replacement, the entire clock goes dark at once. No warning, no broken gear to hear. That is the difference between mechanical failure and systemic failure. Ford ran for 283 days without anyone replacing the battery, and the crack did not appear in the EMALS or the AAG. It appeared in a laundry room. The technology held, the organism around it, the crew, the habitability, the thousands of support systems keeping 5,000 people functional at combat tempo for 283 days did not. Meanwhile, Bush spent those 9 months at Norfolk, maintained, certified, rested. She is not sailing because she is better. She is sailing because she is available. And availability, being present when the geometry needs you, is a form of capability that no specification sheet measures. The ship designed to make the Nimitz obsolete is in a Croatian shipyard. The ship built to be phased out is crossing the Atlantic to hold the line. Not because steam is better than EMALS, because the geometry does not ask which ship is more capable. It asks which ship is here. Available beats optimal when optimal is unavailable. A fire in a laundry room revealed something that 11,000 strike sorties and 60 warships on the seafloor could not. The most carefully designed planning equation in the history of naval warfare has a variable that nobody wrote on the whiteboard. If that variable changes how you think about what keeps a geometry intact, subscribe to Navy Decoded. The next equation is already being built. Not firepower, not stealth, not sortie rate, not the cost per aircraft launch. Endurance. Bush is crossing the Atlantic toward the Mediterranean vertex. Ford is in Split. Bab el-Mandeb is uncovered. Lincoln holds Hormuz. The siege continues, but as a funnel, not a coffin. 2 walls instead of 3, and through the gap, the Houthis are already testing the silence. $13 billion bought the highest sortie rate ever achieved from a flight deck, digital launch precision, and a power architecture built for weapons that have not been invented yet. None of that was wrong. But the war being fought right now is testing a different question. Not how fast can you launch, but how long can you last? And the ship answering that question is the last one built from the past, running on steam from 1955, holding a geometry the future ship helped build and could not sustain. Ford will be repaired. The geometry will eventually close again. The question that remains, the question the next shipbuilding budget has to answer honestly, is this. When you design a warship for maximum capability, how much endurance are you trading away? In a world where American strategy requires carriers to sustain operations across theaters that change, mission profiles that shift, and timelines no one can predict, is the ship that does more the right answer? Or is the ship that lasts longer?